Do you ever have a situation where you need to isolate one of your chickens? Perhaps it's got some symptoms that it's showing and you don't want it to be with the other birds until you're sure what's going on. Or maybe it's going through a heavy molt and the other birds are picking on it and you need it to have some time to recover. Well, those would be situations when it would be great to have a kind of mobile isolation unit. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a one chicken tractor. 2 quick points before we get started. The principles in this video apply to just about any size chicken tractor, so you can view this as a chicken tractor 101 type of a video. The second point is, in order for me to be able to pasture my chickens, they have to be in a chicken tractor. I cannot free range my chickens because of the sheer volume and regularity of predators that like to eat chickens. Hawks, foxes, raccoons, and on and on. So that's why I had to build this tractor. So if you'd like to see a video specifically about this combination of a chicken tractor that docks to a coop, you can watch that video there. All right, let's build a one chicken tractor. When I'm designing a chicken tractor, whether it's for 1 or 6 chickens, there are 5 main things I want to make sure are well designed into the tractor. Those are protection, space, durability, access to food and water, and general protection from the elements like a bright sun or driving rain. Okay, let's start with the first one. Of course, a critical aspect to any chicken tractor is the ability for it to protect the chickens. Always use hardware cloth. Never use chicken wire or poultry wire. It's terrible. It's very easy for a predator to stretch it out and reach their grubby paws in. I'm looking at you, raccoons. Another critical detail for me is that I always include a wire skirt that makes it difficult for digging predators to go under. Space. Most sources recommend that you give each chicken about 4 square feet. And so in the design for the one chicken tractor, I'm going to make it 1.5 feet wide by 1.5 feet tall by 2.5 feet long. But you have to remember, this is a mobile chicken structure, and so technically the chicken is going to have access to way more square footage. And on top of that, this is a temporary isolation structure. This isn't the structure that the chicken would be living in on a regular basis. Next up, durability. I make a lot of garden structures and poultry structures during the course of a year. In fact, in the background, you can see some that I'm working on for a client. I figured out for this particular project, the one chicken tractor, it's going to take 4 2x4s made of pressure-treated lumber. And specifically, I ripped these down to 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. It ends up being kind of the optimal size that gives you a really strong structure, but it's also still pretty lightweight. Next up, I'm going to need to make sure that the chicken in the one chicken tractor has access to food and water. In the big one, that looks like a hanging waterer and a food tube. I'm not sure that's exactly how it's going to play out in the one chicken tractor. I'm going to have to be a little bit more creative. Lastly, protection from the elements. Now, in the large version, I made it a little bit more semi-permanent because during the summer when it's nice and hot, the chickens like to sleep in the chicken tractor versus up in the coop where it's warmer. So I made it a little bit more, serious of a design. I don't think that I'm going to need to make the one chicken tractor as protective. I think it needs to protect them from the sun if they want to get out of the sun. And if there's a surprise storm, I need to, make it so that the chicken can get out of the rain or whatever. So I think it'll be a lot simpler design. So the first thing that I do is I rip all of the lumber to make that 1 3/4 stock that I use to build these structures. And technically speaking, it's probably closer to 1 5/8, but you get the idea. You basically want to rip a 2x4 in half. And one of the things that I do is I will just place a 2x4 on the table saw and then make sure that everything is nice and square so that I'm not cutting tapered boards. I wouldn't recommend using a long 2x4 to do this because it's easier to kind of accidentally have it off kilter. So I generally have a little piece of 2x4 round, set it on the table saw, slide up the fence, and we're now ready to start ripping the stock. Another reason that I like to rip my 2x4s on the table saw like that is because I'm not actually evenly cutting the 2x4 in half. I'm actually ripping it into square stock. That's why there's that strip that's left over. All right, so the next step is I'm going to cut everything to length. I'm going to cut 8 30-inch pieces, 13 18-inch pieces, and then I'm going to cut 24 6-inch corner braces that have 45s on each end. All right, let's start cutting. Once I've cut a piece, for instance, this is one of the 30-inch pieces, what I do just to save time is I actually use it to mark out my next subsequent cuts. In this case, there's 8 of them, and that'll just save steps. You could also set up a jig, but that takes time. Whereas if you just keep reusing the same stick, don't use subsequent pieces to do it because your line will start creeping along. But if you use the same one over and over again, and then you can really quickly cut through all of your material. I should also say, don't pre-mark all of your boards and then cut them. You need to mark them one at a time. Otherwise, the thickness of your blade will change the lengths of your cuts. So one at a time. Another tip you want to keep in mind is try to avoid having knots. The quality of lumber nowadays is there's always going to be knots in it, but avoid having knots in the end, say 2 or 3 inches on any one of these pieces of wood, because those are going to be the points in which you connect at your corners, and if there's knots, there's a possibility that it'll break, or it won't be as strong as it could be if it didn't have a knot. So avoid knots. They can be in the middle of the piece of wood, but never on the ends. When cutting the 6-inch braces that have the 45s on each end, because there's 24 of them, it definitely is easier to set up a jig. And basically all you do is once you have one made like that, then you're going to set that up on the saw. You're going to pull the saw down, slide it up to the blade, and then you're going to set a block on the other end of it, and you're just going to lock that block in place, and then every time you slide up to that block, you know you're cutting it at the right length, and then you don't have to mess around with, because you have to flip the board back and forth in order to cut the 45s in the right direction. So it's just easier and faster that way. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the bottom, top, and lid of the structure. So what I do is I grab 2 30s and then I put 2 18s inside. You never want them to be on the end like that. You want them to be inside. Otherwise your dimensions can get messed up like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on all 4 contact points. And then I'm going to clamp the whole thing together. And the reason I'm going to do that is then what I will do is I'm going to pre-drill my screw that goes into each of these corners. The other thing I want you to keep in mind whenever you're pre-drilling is you don't want the drill bit to go straight into the corner. You want the drill bit to be going at an angle. And the reason is we're going to have vertical pieces. And if you have it right in the middle of that corner, you won't be able to put a screw down for the vertical pieces. So you make sure that you're making it so that the screw is going in at an angle. Once you have built those 3 main rectangles, you can set the lid aside, and then essentially you're going to repeat what you just did, but you're going to do it vertically. And so you're going to put glue in each of the contact points. You're going to put the 4 legs in, and you're going to clamp it so that it holds together tight. And now the screws that you're putting in are going straight down into each of the 8 corners, top and bottom. I'm using 3-inch screws for all of this. All right, so now that the box is made, it's time to put the corner braces in. And the way that I do that is I put glue on them, I put them into the corner, and then I clamp them like that. I then pre-drill from both directions and screw them in. So there it is, a chicken tractor for one. Mainly for temporary use when a chicken needs to be isolated or needs some time to heal from injuries. But you get the basic idea. These general principles of construction apply to bigger, more ambitious chicken tractors. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Please check out my shop. Please hit the bell icon. And if you like this video, you might like these.